first, I just have to comment on what Donald Trump just said. What is wrong with that man? I mean, seriously, making this about him, always saying now and more bizarre things. This is not the way he reacts to tragedies, and he's got to be called out every single time. I mean, I cannot believe that this is the person running our country right now. But onto your question. I think that when I'm proud of our leader today, listen, one of three things is going to happen. Kristi Noem is either A, going to resign, 2, she is going to get fired by the president in some way because of the pressure, or 3, we're going to impeach her.
This just happened. A moment of total political clarity occurred behind closed doors, and it changes the entire calculation for the next 2 years. Donald Trump, speaking at a private Republican retreat, just admitted something that presidents almost never say out loud. He admitted that his political survival is now entirely dependent on a single election outcome. He told his own party members that if they do not hold the House in the upcoming midterms, he will be impeached. He did not say it might happen. He used definitive language. He said, "I will get impeached." This is the most serious internal rupture we have seen because it confirms that the president is operating from a place of genuine fear regarding his standing with Congress. There is a resolution sitting in the Judiciary Committee right now that confirms his fears are well-founded. This is not just campaign rhetoric. This represents a looming constitutional crisis that is already written down, filed, and waiting for a vote. The stakes here are the collapse of a presidency and a third historical mark on a permanent record. This is what is happening right now inside the Capitol. We need to walk through exactly what is happening with this impeachment situation because the details are specific and the document is real. There is an active resolution currently sitting in the United States Congress. It is House Resolution 353. This document is not a draft. It is not a rumor. It is a filed legislative instrument that contains 7 specific articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. These are 7 separate charges that range from obstruction of justice to tyranny. The paperwork is done. The arguments are written. The resolution is simply waiting for the political power to move it forward. Right now, there is no vote scheduled. You are not seeing hearings on television because the Republican Party currently controls the House of Representatives. As long as they hold the gavel, this resolution stays in a drawer. But the existence of the document is what matters here. Trump knows it is there. He knows what is in it.
The top person on our list, number 1 on the Oversight Committee's list, who will be receiving a subpoena on day 1, will be Stephen Miller. He has a lot to answer for, or what damage he's caused in this country.
Well, I think we just need to let that marinate for a moment because I much like yesterday, this talk of Greg Bovino is switching out one body for another. The other is Tom Homan.
And we know that he is terrified of it because of what he told his own party. At a retreat earlier this month, Trump stood in front of Republican lawmakers and gave them a very stark warning. He told them that if they do not win the midterms, the Democrats will find a reason to impeach him. He said the words, "I will get impeached." That is a direct admission. He is telling his coalition that the 2026 midterms are not about policy or the economy. He is making the election a referendum on whether or not he faces a third impeachment. This is unprecedented territory. No president in American history has ever been impeached 3 times. But the groundwork is already laid for this to happen. The resolution is ready. There is a petition drive that has gathered nearly 1,000,000 signatures from citizens demanding action. Democratic lawmakers are preparing the legal arguments, and the president himself is validating the threat. He is not dismissing it as fake news in private. He is treating it as an inevitability if he loses the House. Let us look at the specific charges in House Resolution 353 because you need to understand the case that is waiting for him. This is not a vague list of complaints. These are detailed legal accusations. Article 1 charges him with obstruction of justice and violation of due process. This focuses on how the administration is using the Department of Justice. The charge is that the president is using federal prosecutors to target his political enemies while protecting his allies. It cites specific instances where the administration has interfered with investigations and installed acting attorneys without Senate confirmation to bypass oversight. The argument here is that the justice system is being weaponized for personal political protection. Article 2 is about the power of the purse. The Constitution gives Congress the sole authority to spend money. The charge here is usurpation of that power. The resolution documents how the president has declared emergencies to move military funding around without approval. It details how he has frozen spending that Congress already passed. The accusation is that he is spending public money on his own priorities, despite Congress explicitly saying no. This strikes at the heart of the separation of powers. Article 3 covers abuse of trade powers and international aggression. This section focuses on the use of tariffs in military operations. It specifically mentions the operations regarding Venezuela and the use of emergency laws to impose economic penalties on other nations without going through the proper legislative channels. The argument is that the president is conducting his own foreign policy war without the authorization required by law. Article 4 deals with the First Amendment. This is a charge regarding the violation of rights. It details attacks on the press and attempts to silence critics. It points to a memo that authorizes sanctions against law firms that sue the administration. The charge is that the president is using the weight of the federal government to intimidate anyone who speaks out or attempts to seek legal redress against his policies. Article 5 charges him with the creation of an unlawful office. This is a technical but very serious charge. It refers to the practice of using acting officials to run the government. The president has installed heads of agencies and attorneys who have never been confirmed by the Senate. He keeps them in those roles longer than the law allows. This allows him to bypass the confirmation process entirely. The resolution argues that this creates a shadow government of unconfirmed officials who answer only to him, which is a violation of the Appointments Clause. Article 6 is bribery and corruption. This article focuses on money. It looks at the intersection of the president's business interests and his official duties. It cites specific events such as dinners involving the crypto industry and the use of his properties by foreign governments. The charge is that he is using the office of the presidency to enrich himself and his family, which falls under the definition of corruption and bribery in the Constitution. Article 7 is the catch-all charge. It is titled Tyranny. This article argues that when you take all these actions together, defying courts, attacking institutions, punishing enemies, bypassing Congress, it amounts to a form of government that is not a democracy. It argues that the president is acting like a dictator. This is the summary charge that says he is unfit for office because he does not respect the rule of law. These are the charges that are sitting in the committee right now. They are backed by court rulings that have struck down some of these appointments and spending measures. They are backed by witness testimony. This is a documented case. There is also a significant grassroots component to this. A group called Blackout the System has been organizing on the ground. They are the ones behind the petition that is nearing 100,000 signatures. Their argument is simple. They say the president represents greed and a lack of accountability. They are channeling the frustration of voters who feel that the system is broken. If the Democrats win the House, they will have to listen to this pressure. They will have a base that is demanding they use the resolution that is already written. The political incentives are very clear. If the Democrats take control of the House in November, the committee assignments flip. The Democrats take the gavel of the Judiciary Committee. They can schedule hearings on House Resolution 353 immediately. They can call witnesses. They can vote to send these articles to the floor. And if they have the majority, they can impeach him. That is the scenario Trump sees. That is why he is panicking. He is telling his party that they have to win to save him, but that is a dangerous political strategy. By saying this, he is making the midterms a referendum on his own behavior. He is asking voters to decide if he should be protected or if he should be prosecuted. Polling suggests that many voters are tired of the chaos. They are tired of the corruption allegations. If the election becomes a question of accountability, the Republicans might lose. So to be absolutely clear about the current status, Donald Trump is not being impeached today. There are no hearings happening this week. But the weapon is loaded and sitting on the table. The resolution exists. The charges are drafted. The opposition is organized. And the president has admitted that if he loses the election, the process will begin. This is a waiting game. The 2026 midterms are the trigger. If the power shifts, the third impeachment begins. We need to analyze why this specific moment matters so much in the broader context of political history and institutional power. When a sitting president openly tells his party that an election loss equals his own impeachment, he is signaling a breakdown of the normal political order. Usually, presidents try to frame midterm elections around broad issues like the economy, national security, or healthcare. They try to make the election about the people. By framing the 2026 midterms explicitly around his own legal survival, Trump is stripping away the pretense of governance. He is revealing that the primary function of his political party right now is to serve as a shield against constitutional consequences. This situation is historically unique because of the third time factor. We have seen presidents face impeachment threats before. Nixon faced it and resigned. Clinton faced it and fought it, actually gaining popularity because the public saw it as an intrusion into his private life. Trump has already faced it twice. The first two times the process was polarized, but it followed a certain script. The charges were debated, the votes were cast along party lines, and the Senate acquitted. However, a third impeachment changes the nature of the presidency itself. It moves the act of impeachment from being a rare emergency break glass option to a recurring feature of his administration. It suggests that the conflict between the executive branch and the legislature has become permanent. If House Resolution 353 moves forward, it solidifies the argument that Trump's style of governance is fundamentally incompatible with the existing laws of the United States. It is not just about one phone call or one riot anymore. The 7 articles in this resolution paint a picture of systemic incompatibility with the Constitution. The inclusion of an article labeled Tyranny is particularly significant. In the past, impeachment articles have been very technical: perjury, obstruction of Congress, abuse of power. Using the word tyranny is a shift in language. It is a throwback to the founding era of the country. It frames the conflict not as a legal dispute, but as a battle for the survival of the republic. This language raises the temperature. It tells us that the opposition does not just view him as a criminal, but as an existential threat to the system. We also have to look at the institutional damage regarding the acting appointments mentioned in Article 5. This is a subtle but dangerous erosion of power. The Senate was designed to check the president's power to hire people. By bypassing that for years, using loopholes to keep temporary loyalists in power, the executive branch is effectively cutting the legislative branch out of the government. If this goes unchecked, it sets a precedent for every future president. It means the Senate no longer matters. The impeachment resolution is an attempt by Congress to claw back that power. It is an institutional fight as much as a political one. Furthermore, the fear Trump expressed at the retreat reveals the fragility of his position. A strong leader does not tell his subordinates that he is doomed if they fail. That is an admission of weakness. It shows that he understands his support is conditional. He knows that the only thing standing between him and another stain on his legacy is a razor-thin majority in the House. This fear drives irrational behavior. It leads to more extreme rhetoric and more desperate measures to secure loyalty. We are seeing a feedback loop where his fear of impeachment makes him act more aggressively, which in turn makes the case for impeachment stronger. The comparison to other countries is also relevant here. In unstable democracies, leaders often use their time in office to immunize themselves from prosecution, and when they lose power, they face immediate legal peril. The United States has generally avoided this cycle. But we are now seeing a dynamic that looks very similar to those unstable systems. The election is no longer just about who rules, but about who goes to court. This deepens the divide in the country because it raises the personal stakes for the leadership to absolute maximum levels. When a leader feels they are fighting for their life, they will do anything to win. That is the danger of the current moment. Looking ahead, the consequences of this standoff are going to define the next 2 years of American life. In the short term, we are going to see the 2026 midterm campaign become the most vicious political battle we have ever witnessed. Because Trump has defined the stakes as his own survival, he will demand total loyalty from every Republican candidate. He will likely purge anyone who hesitates. The party will be forced to run on a platform of Protect Trump, regardless of what is happening in the economy or the world. This will nationalize every single local race. Every congressional candidate will be asked, will you vote to impeach or will you vote to save him? There will be no middle ground. If the Republicans hold the House, the consequences are clear. House Resolution 353 will die in committee. Trump will likely interpret a victory as a mandate to continue the exact behaviors outlined in the articles. He will feel vindicated. The use of acting appointments will likely expand. The use of emergency spending powers will likely increase. The message will be that the voters knew the charges and chose him anyway. This would effectively nullify the check of impeachment for the remainder of his term. However, if the Democrats win the House, the consequences are far more chaotic. We can predict with high certainty that impeachment proceedings would begin almost immediately in January 2027. The new Democratic majority would be under immense pressure from their base and groups like Blackout the System to act fast. They would not wait. This would paralyze the legislative agenda. For months, the country would be consumed by hearings, testimony, and the spectacle of a third trial. The long-term consequence of a third impeachment is the complete erosion of the stigma. If a president can be impeached 3 times and remain in office, the tool of impeachment loses its power. It becomes just another partisan censure. However, there is a different variable this time. Trump's political capital is lower. His coalition is fracturing. While removal by the Senate requires a 2/3 vote, which is a very high bar, a third trial would severely damage his ability to govern. It would freeze his administration. Cabinet members might resign rather than face scrutiny. The bureaucracy would stop cooperating. We must also consider the legacy consequence. History is written by the records we leave behind. A third impeachment would cement Donald Trump's legacy as the antagonist of the American constitutional system. It would be the defining fact of his biography. Trump knows this. That is why he is scared. He is fighting for how he will be remembered. The outlook is turbulent. We are moving toward a collision. The resolution is the roadmap, the midterms are the vehicle, and the destination is a constitutional showdown. The system is blinking red. The mechanisms for removing a president are being dusted off and readied for use. The only thing holding them back is the vote count in the House of Representatives. Once that barrier falls, if it falls, the process begins. We are watching a slow-motion crisis that is about to speed up.